Euromaxx highlights. In today's show, corporate choir. Top business managers sing out in Berlin. Meat Matters. Germany's first cookery magazine for men is called Beef. Innovative idea. An artist who sketches people she's never seen. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Robin Merrill.
And a very warm welcome from Berlin. Simon de Pury made a name for himself in the 1990s as one of the most entertaining and best auctioneers on the art market. His performances have become legendary and he captivates audiences for hours on end. What is not so well known is the fact that he's an accomplished photographer, and right now he's got an exhibition here in Berlin.
These photos were taken by the master himself, and it's a bit of a sensation. Simon de Pury, a star auctioneer who has had perhaps more priceless artworks pass through his hands than any other, is now exhibiting his own photographs. He calls his own work pure Purygraphy.
It may seem unusual that an art dealer and auctioneer should be an artist himself. But I found that many museum directors, curators, collectors and art dealers are also artists, but they all keep it secret.
And I just go public with it.
So now he has gone public, even though as head auctioneer at Philippe de Pury and Company, only the highest quality pieces of art suffice. So expectations were high. In the end, a travel diary has been released with photos that the jet-setter has taken from his travels around the world.
What interests me the most is the visual, the structural. I'm just obsessed by the visual. I'm always traveling as part of my work, and thankfully I always have a camera at hand to capture anything that fascinates me.
Simon de Pury has presented his photos in Berlin. Even though he visits many of the important stages of the global art market, this city in particular has always captivated him.
The city of Berlin is becoming ever more important. At this point in time, I would say that Berlin is culturally the most important city in Europe. It's a bit like New York was in the early 80s. Artists from all over the world are based in Berlin.
As his pictures show, he travels all over the world. Terminal 5 at Heathrow Airport. Or Tokyo in January of this year. And London's Chinatown in February.
What's nice about life is you can always discover something new. You never stop learning.
Everywhere Simon de Pury goes, he meets old friends, like Matthias Harder, curator of the Newton Foundation in Berlin. Simon de Pury was friends for a long time with photographer Helmut Newton and cooperates closely with the foundation. De Pury can even be seen in the current exhibition here. In the art world, he's something of an authority.
This is the photograph from that famous evening in Berlin in 2000 when we sold Helmut Newton's sumo book. It remains to this day the highest price paid for a book in the 20th century. Then at 3 in the morning we went to the bar and drank champagne in what is today the Regent Hotel on Gendarmenmarkt. And Helmut Newton, Benedict Taschen and I celebrated in true style.
The auction of the hand-signed copy with works by Helmut Newton, which went for 317,000 euros, was one of Simon de Pury's most spectacular. His experience of life in the art world has inspired his own artwork.
I'm often inspired by paintings of my favorite artists. You just absorb everything you see like a sponge and then try to reproduce it somehow in your own way.
De Pury has also learned from the big names when it comes to pricing his work. An original costs around 6,000 euros. And Simon de Pury again did what he does best. and sold one of his own works the very first day.
It's a well-known fact that singing is good for your health and brings down stress levels. Those are just some of the reasons why high-powered managers like to give their vocal cords a workout, and they can do so in the Leader Choir, a special project of Berlin's renowned radio choir that pushes high-level executives to perform in a completely different way.
The sweet sound of success. The Berlin Leaders Choir is giving a concert. A chance for some of the country's top executives to show off some of their other talents. One of them is Wolfgang Bartel. The 63-year-old economist is preparing for the concert by having private singing lessons. Bartel is as ambitious and motivated with his hobbies as he is in his professional life.
My goal is to produce excellent results in all areas of my life, both in my work and with music.
Wolfgang Bartel works on the executive floor of an employers' association. He deals with numbers and hard facts. Performing well under pressure is part of his job. And that's useful for members of the Leaders Choir. They've all paid over 400 euros to take part in the project with the Berlin Radio Choir. Only 4 days of rehearsal have been scheduled. It can be lonely at the top. The choir gives business leaders a chance to join an ensemble and to take instructions from someone else for a change.
I guess what's really interesting for amateur singers is to see how intensively and how with so much concentration professional singers work, certainly in this choir where I'm very demanding with them. So they will sing one phrase and immediately will be looking for corrections and so on, asking for just one bar, one word to make it better.
Simon Halsey has been the conductor of the Berlin Radio Choir since 2001. He's internationally renowned and always open to new projects which involve amateurs. Earlier this year, the choir performed in the Berghain Techno Club.
Most of the choral world is an amateur choral world, and so working with very engaged amateur singers is what I normally do when I'm working in America, when I'm working in the United Kingdom. I'm particularly lucky that here in Germany I have this virtuoso group of professionals, but this luxury is not normal.
The concert is taking place on Unter den Linden, a boulevard in the heart of Berlin. The tickets are sold out, and the choir is getting nervous. Then it's curtained up. The performance is flawless. When it comes to teamwork, these leaders are real professionals.
Now, you might think there are enough cookery books and magazines around at the moment, but this one, called Beef, claims to be different. No, it's not just for meat eaters, as you might think from the title, but it does have a specific target audience, men. And its publishers are confident that despite the current economic crisis, it stands a good chance of becoming a bestseller.
A well-stocked newsagent shop carries about 2,000 magazines. And now there's a new one, Beef, which markets itself for men with taste. The magazine was launched by Gruner & Jahr, one of Germany's largest publishing houses. Beef is the brainchild of Jan Spielhagen. He's convinced it'll be a success, even in these difficult economic times.
Many products do well even during a crisis, and some products do especially well. That's exactly what we're trying to do with beef. The men I'm trying to reach with beef are weathering the crisis better than the average German. We want to reach men who are doing well financially, and who can swing the €9.80 for the magazine.
For €9.80, we can read about a competition for the perfect steak, how to make the perfect fried potatoes and skin a rabbit, instructions for an elaborate 4-course menu, and an opulent photo spread. And of course, there's also a segment on the proper utensils and equipment for the amateur cook. Another piece explains how to found a cooking club. These men have already started their cooking club. They call themselves the Cowboy Cooks in English and have been meeting regularly for the past 2 years. Each member cooks one course, but they don't decide the menu ahead of time. That means every meeting is good for a surprise. In this men's night out, the main event is carpaccio with fennel and radish. The vinaigrette is adapted from a Beef magazine recipe. Men who enjoy experimenting with new recipes are no longer a rarity in Germany. Men like these are Beef's target audience. If the first issue is a success, the magazine will appear 4 times a year. The magazine hopes to appeal to the men who have joined the cooking boom by providing that special masculine touch.
Men who cook are also interested in the hardware, the knives, the appliances, the different stove systems. When men cook, they talk about and are interested in the hardware.
The Cowboy Cooks also fancy themselves as hardware experts. With their interest in high-end cooking equipment and unusual recipes, it's no wonder the Cowboy Cooks enjoyed the first issue of Beef.
The kitchen crime scene piece with tips about keeping your knives sharp was brilliant.
The most interesting cooking stories are on the internet. We all know which blogs we read.
It'll continue to develop. It's not bad.
And then there's the price, €9.80. For that amount, each one of us could cook a wonderful 3-course meal for 2.
It's a good approach and it has some nice ideas. I guess you could say less is more here.
So 5 of the 7 Cowboy Cooks like the new magazine. If these numbers hold for all men, then the Beef editors should also have reason to toast the occasion.
Twitter is a global communications platform on the internet. It's said to be one of the best ways to share and discover what is going on right now, this very minute. As I speak, people are joining Twitter by the thousands. There are meant to be 45 million members. And if you want to get noticed there, you have to do something special, like the graphic artist Michaela von Eichberger, who draws people she's met on Twitter, but never actually seen.
In just a few minutes' time, she draws people she's never even seen before. Michaela von Eichberger only knows them through Twitter, the trendy new online forum. She transforms strangers' tweets, short updates of 140 characters or less, into pictures. Then she takes a photo and posts it on Twitter. These small, spontaneous drawings are often freely associated with the pseudonyms chosen by those depicted in her Twitter portraits.
I can't write. The things I write are rather, well, but I can draw. I draw whoever's interested, and really anybody that strikes me as amusing somehow, too. Funny ones, like this crocheted pig. I also sketched a dancer.
The graphic artist from Erlangen has drawn more than 200 people since registering in June with Twitter under the pseudonym Frauenfuß. Sometimes she writes tweets minute by minute about whatever moves her. Just 1 or 2 sentences, like playing ping pong with your thoughts. She follows the entries posted by nearly 1,000 people with Twitter profiles, providing her with a seemingly inexhaustible source of creative energy. Since she began her sketches, the number of her fans on Twitter has risen steadily. Now the tally's up to about 4,400.
I always have an eye on Twitter. I can't even calculate the hours I spend doing that anymore, so it's better not to ask. It's certainly potentially addictive. Someone even wrote about it. It's a horrible drug, but it's fun. So you get really addicted to it.
But Twitter's also about opportunity. The graphic designer has long become a star on the scene. Her agency is getting commissions from it, and 4 galleries invited Michaela von Eichberger to exhibit her drawings, the chance to finally get to know all of her Twitter friends in real life.
In just a minute or two, 64 people have viewed this picture.
The weekend before, it all came together. The first exhibition in a gallery in Nuremberg. The artist meets the real people behind the drawings. Now she can check to see how well she hit the mark. One Twitter user has come here from Berlin.
When you hear something that strikes you and it hurts, it's real.
And this is what I drew.
It's an honor when you see that online.
Her fans were so curious about her work that they traveled here from all over Germany to see where the real world meets the virtual Twitter world. All of them have online pseudonyms, and most of the drawings play with these names. Elephantium, Fish in a Glass. The list goes on. The parallels aren't always clear to outsiders, but there are some striking similarities. Some pictures are a clear flight of fancy.
It's crazy that I've never seen you before. I think it's really similar.
There are plenty of people to see and plenty of drawings. It's almost like a big family reunion. Everyone's heard about everyone else.
You meet and you already know a lot about them. You can chat right away, no small talk about the weather. You say, hey, you were in Iceland last week. You already have this information basis that makes it really easy.
I can tell right away who's who. It's great to finally meet them in real life, and it's exciting how similar they are. Those who come across well on Twitter and have a certain lifestyle and habits, that goes for real life too.
Eichberger's drawings from the Twitter world have made their real world debut. And again, they're giving Twitter users something to talk about. Naturally, the real Twitterers are instantly posting their impressions of the exhibition opening for the whole world to see.
The Beatles were, and indeed are, the most influential group in the history of pop music so far. They've sold more than 1 billion records since the 1960s, and now there's a university degree named after them. Hope University in their hometown of Liverpool is offering a master's degree in Fab 4 studies. We asked 2 students just what it all entails.
They changed the whole culture of pop music.
They helped develop the recording industry.
They've never been studied before, and they should be studied.
George Burton from Scotland and Maria Valencia from Venezuela will be spending the next 2 years immersing themselves in the Beatles. And not just because they're big fans of the Fab Four.
Well, big fan, yeah, but I also want to get a good education behind me at this point. And with that in mind, I thought, well, I know more about the Beatles than I know about anything else. So, a good way of getting rid of that knowledge and using it.
Maria and George snagged 2 of 14 places in the Beatles course, beating hundreds of applicants from around the world. Both are hoping to find work in an academic setting, but as Beatles experts, they'll also have lots of other options.
In the music industry now, it's a very different place from the one when I was in my 20s, where you could say, well, I got to the top through making a cup of tea in the studio. Things have changed now, and they want qualifications, and they like very specific qualifications.
The students will be exploring how the Beatles revolutionized pop music. George and Maria will also focus on what the Beatles mean for local tourism. Every year, several million tourists visit the city to tread in the footsteps of its 4 famous sons. On the itinerary is Penny Lane. And behind this gate is the former orphanage, Strawberry Field. As children, the Beatles played in its gardens.
It's still magical, you know. It still carries the same. Even though being in the course, I've been in Liverpool. You come and visit these places quite a lot, but it's always the same. There's some kind of vibe going on with it.
In the evening, the place to be is the legendary Cavern Club, where the Beatles' career was launched. Today, the Beatles can still be heard here every day. George and Maria might look like they're just enjoying themselves, but when they hang out here, they're actually doing their homework.
And that's all for this week, but if you're interested in these or other Euromaxx reports, there's quite a choice on YouTube. Until next time, bye-bye.